Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever thought about a company's hidden environmental footprint? The one that doesn't actually happen inside their own factories or offices? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
So let's just start with a really big question right out of the gate. What if a company's single biggest environmental impact doesn't come from anything it actually does itself? What if it's hidden somewhere else completely? That's the mystery we're going to try and solve.
And the answer to that mystery, well, it has a name: Scope 3 emissions. This is where we find that hidden footprint, the stuff that's so easy to miss, but is, absolutely critical to understand.
So what are they? To put it simply, Scope 3 covers all the indirect emissions that happen outside of a company's direct control, everything before their operations and everything after. It really makes you stop thinking about just one company and start seeing their entire ecosystem.
Now, Scope 3 is, well, it's massive. So for today, we're going to focus on just one half of it, the upstream emissions. Think of this like a detective story. We're going to go on a journey to trace everything that has to happen before a single product can even be made.
To do this, we're literally going to follow a product's secret journey. We're going to trace its emission story all the way backwards, from the factory floor to the very, very beginning of its life. Our little investigation is going to have three main stops. First, we'll start at the very source, the core ingredients. Then, we'll follow the trail through the tangled web of the supply chain. And finally, we'll look at the human element because, well, people are a huge part of this story too. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Before you can make anything, you need stuff, right? Raw materials, big machines, a whole lot of energy. These are the basic building blocks, and every single one has a carbon footprint. It all kicks off with Category 1, purchased goods and services. And honestly, this is the big one. This is the footprint of everything a company buys just to exist. We're talking raw materials, office supplies, even the consulting services they hire. For a lot of companies, this one category is the biggest slice of their hidden footprint, by far. Next up, you've got Category 2, capital goods. These are the heavy hitters, the big physical things you need to operate. We're talking about the factory itself, all the machinery inside it, the delivery trucks, all of it. We measured their cradle-to-gate emissions, which is basically the total carbon cost of creating them, from digging the metal out of the ground to the moment they arrive at the factory. And of course, all that stuff needs power. That brings us to Category 3. Now, this is interesting. This isn't about the power the company actually uses. That's a different category called Scope 2. This is about the emissions from just getting the energy to them. It's the emissions from drilling the oil, refining it into gas, and even the electricity that just kind of gets lost along the power lines. It's the full well-to-tank story. Okay, so we have our core ingredients, but they don't just magically show up at the factory, right? They've got to get there. And that brings us to our next stop, untangling this huge, complex supply chain web. All that movement falls into Category 4, transportation. This is the carbon cost of logistics, plain and simple. It's every truck, every ship, every single airplane used to haul materials and parts to the company. And you better believe every mile adds up. Naturally, when you get a bunch of materials and start making things, you also create something else: trash. Category 5 tracks the emissions from getting rid of all that waste. Whether it's methane leaking from a landfill or the energy burned at an incinerator, yeah, even a company's garbage has a carbon story. Now for one that's a little tricky, Category 8, upstream leased assets. This is all about the emissions from places a company uses but doesn't actually own. So imagine they're renting a giant warehouse. The electricity used to light that warehouse and the gas used to heat it, that all counts towards their Scope 3, not the landlord's.
All right, let's move on to the final piece of our upstream puzzle, and it's a big one: the people. Because believe it or not, the day-to-day activities of employees create a whole lot of emissions connected to the company.
First up is Category 6, business travel. This is pretty straightforward. It's every flight a manager takes to a conference, every rental car an engineer drives to a site visit, every train ticket and hotel stay. All of it creates emissions that get chalked up to the company's upstream footprint. And last but not least, there's the daily grind. Category 7 is employee commuting. This is the collective impact of every single employee getting from their home to their job and back again, day after day. Whether it's by car, by bus, or by train, it all counts. Whew. Okay, so we've traced this whole secret journey, from raw materials to transportation, all the way to the people involved. Let's pull back for a second and look at the big picture here, because it's so important to understand why all of this matters. So let's just recap real quick. We've got the stuff the company buys and the machines it uses. We've got the energy to get the power there and the fuel to move everything around. We've got the waste from operations and the energy used in buildings they rent. And finally, we have all the travel and commuting from their employees. See, when you put it all together, these 8 categories paint a really detailed picture of that hidden impact.
You know, at the end of the day, it really boils down to a simple truth. You can't manage what you don't measure. And only by mapping out this entire hidden upstream journey can a company really truly understand its total environmental impact and maybe, just maybe, find the best places to make a real difference. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If a company does everything right inside its own walls, but completely ignores this huge, hidden impact in its supply chain, can it really honestly claim to be green? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what being a responsible company actually means today.